Welcome to Podcast Movement 2023.
Hi, everyone. Hello, hello. Thank you for joining. Hi, I'm Odile. And in this panel, we're going to talk about women in podcasting and the main obstacles they face. For this, I have incredible women with me today in this panel who agreed to be vulnerable on stage and challenge themselves to a truth or dare session. And before I introduce them and before we start, I want to say a few words about why Ausha cares so much about women in podcasting and how deeply committed we are to the cause. In France, where the company was founded 5 years ago, the vast majority of podcasters are women. And so less than a year ago when we launched in the US and we looked at the numbers and we saw that almost 70% of podcasters were men, we were quite shocked. The other thing is, since its creation, Ausha has been actively supporting women. The company joined the 1 in 3 Women Network, which raises awareness and fights against violence towards women. Ausha is an official partner of the Women in Podcast Network in France, dedicated to professional women in podcasting. And last but not least, Ausha won a prize for Best Workplace for Women this year. So this is why we are incredibly excited for this panel today. So let's dive in. So you know me, Odile. I'm the head of US for Ausha, based in New York. In this panel, we have Megan from Edison Research. We have Lindsay from All Ears English. We have Tangia from the BIPOC podcast creators. We have Tangia from Navigating Cancer Together. And we have Deirdre from Capshow. So what is, yes, thank you. So what is this Truth or Dare session about? Basically, I'm going to share the 5 main obstacles that women in podcasting are facing. And these women are going to share with us either a personal anecdote, a truth, or commit to an actionable challenge, a dare. And as we all listen to these women, I also want to encourage everyone listening today to reflect on your own story, your own truth or dare. And later, we will, for those who want, share on social media with the hashtag WomenDare. And for 30 days, Ausha is going to monitor, and whether you share a success, a challenge, a truth, question, we will be there to support you, and hopefully we will all be there with each other, supporting each other. Okay, let's go. Challenge number 1, obstacle number 1. Women often do not ask for money or not enough. So who wants to take this truth or dare?
I can start. I'm Deirdre from Capshow. So I kind of wanted to share like a personal thing, but also maybe something that's helped me in terms of putting this into perspective. In terms of not asking for enough money, that's plagued me from, my whole life, really. Whether that's just... I didn't know that it was a female thing that it was happening. I just always assumed that, by just doing a really good job, for example, in corporate, I would just get recognized for it and be given more money. I just thought that was how life worked, and until you realize it doesn't actually. You have to actually put your hand up and ask for it. And what exacerbates this, especially if I reflect on corporate or even business, because we live in the real world, and even in business there's men and women, and we very much approach these conversations differently. Women. And I was actually reading about this in a book by Alison Armstrong, but she was basically saying, women have a very diffusive way of thinking. So we will connect the dots and assume that others are connecting the dots as well, which is why a lot of times we're not very direct with just asking for what it is that we want, whereas men do because they don't have that diffusive way of thinking. So they'll just ask for it and then they'll get it. And we always wonder, why do we not ask for the thing that we want or get the thing that we feel like we deserve? Is also because we don't ask for it. And so I just thought that was a really interesting way to not blame ourselves for being female, for being women, for the way we think. It's actually a strength, but how do we still live in the real world and essentially get what it is that we deserve?
Yep.
Hello? Okay, that's working now. So I would add to that to say, when I was in corporate, I was young in my career in different roles. I too thought that if you just worked hard and you did a good job, that you would get recognized and that you would get your raise, and very quickly ran into a brick wall with that. And for years, I didn't understand why I wasn't advancing as quickly as my colleagues, who usually happened to be male, who were not as smart as me, who did not work as hard as me, who did not have the results that I did. And one day my dad was like, you just need to tell them that you need more money or you're gonna leave. And I was like, but what if they don't give it to me? And what if they get mad? And he was like, leave. It was just a far gone conclusion. And I did that, and I went to another role, and I got more money. It was a better situation for me. But what I learned was it's not enough to just ask for what you want, because a lot of times you're not gonna get it. And you have to be willing to bet on yourself and take the risk. And the other thing I think that we are sort of ingrained is to take care of the people around us and be worried about their emotional states and think about, am I gonna upset them? How are they gonna feel? And the dare that I had to give to myself was, I dare myself to just let other people be uncomfortable if that's what they need to do. It doesn't have anything to do with me. As long as I know that I was a professional, that I wasn't inappropriate anyway, their emotional state is not my business. And I don't need to take that on. And so that's how I got better at getting what I needed and what I deserved, is because I would just dare myself to say the thing that I needed and why. And then the other most important thing is to just shut your mouth and let them sit with that silence. I do it now as a business owner. When I'm negotiating a contract, we get to the money part, this is what it costs, and I shut up. And as I'm sitting there, I am thinking what do they think? How do they feel? But I trained myself to just shut up. And I did that I got a Post-it note and I put it on my computer and it said, shut the F up.
That's
it sat there for years, for 3 years it sat there. And I learned to just be quiet. And if there's a dare that I could give you, and when you're in these conversations, be a professional, be appropriate, stand in your professionalism and who you are, and don't behave in a way that you wouldn't want to behave. As long as you did that, you're good. But tell them what you need, and then just shut your mouth. And yeah, you're gonna feel uncomfortable. You're gonna feel it in your gut. That's kind of how I know I've gotten to the right price, is my stomach is like, ooh, that makes me a little bit uncomfortable. And I'm worried that they're gonna be uncomfortable. But that's a good gauge for me.
I think that's a very, very good dare. And anyone else want to share something?
Sure, I will. So basically, everything that the ladies have shared is very true, especially in corporate America. I struggle with that too, being afraid to ask for what I want, what I feel I deserve, because I didn't want to lose my job or because I didn't want to miss out on a opportunity. So that was one thing that stood in my way in corporate America. But like the ladies have shared, if you don't say what you want and ask for what you need, you're not going to get it. And as I sat and I watched so many other people in the organization who were not doing as well as I was doing, not to brag or anything, but didn't have the skill sets, didn't put in the time and effort, they were getting more and more and more. And I'm like, I don't like this. I don't like this at all. And so for me, learning how to negotiate and not being afraid to push back and say, no, that's not enough. This is why I'm valuable, I'm worthy, here are my skill sets. I need to be compensated for those things. And so for me, I have a dare for this, and that's to continue to develop my negotiation skills. But then also I have a very specific dare that I'd like to share if that's okay. And so my goal is to, by December 31st, I'm putting a date on it, y'all, so I need you to hold me accountable. And it is to deliver a value pitch for sponsorship to a cancer advocacy group like Stand Up to Cancer, and basically ask them to sponsor my podcast and then explain to them why it's valuable, why they should sponsor me, and how I can benefit them and how they can benefit me. So that's a dare that I have for myself, and that is by the end of this year.
That's awesome. And you know, and I think, Talaya, I think you will share on social, and if anybody has any idea, contact for Talaya to make this happen, we're all going to be there for you. Cool.
Thank you.
So obstacle number 2, women have less speaking time, leading to underrepresentation. Who wants to speak? Yeah, Lindsay.
I'll go ahead and dive right in. So hi, everyone. Just to say I'm speaking for myself as a woman. Not everyone's experience is the same for sure. And of course, there are lots of ways to identify as a woman. I think that's important to note. And this conversation should get more nuanced as time goes on, as we become more aware as a culture. But I think the reason that women have less speaking time is because we take less speaking time. So this is my case, and my truth is that I definitely have an interesting timer in my head in terms of how long I should speak. It's an arbitrary amount of time, even when there isn't an actual timer like there is today. When I'm speaking in a group, despite 10 years experience on the microphone, a very successful podcast, sponsorships, a business, everything, I still have a timer. And it says, okay, you've spoken enough, let someone else speak. And so I think it comes down to that. I think it comes down to the world will give us the time that we take, right? I think men do this. They just kind of take, right? And we can take a little bit more time. And so my dare for myself and for everyone here is to speak, maybe say one more thing beyond just what you've said, or speak 5% longer. When you think it's time to stop speaking, keep speaking a little bit longer. I think this is how the world will give us the time we deserve. So that is my dare.
Nice. Oh.
Say that I think that's an interesting point. I never really thought deeply about it, but when I think about it in many of my roles when I was younger in my career and before I started my own business, I used to purposely try to talk in sound bites in meetings because I was so concerned that they would think, oh, she's a woman and she talks too much. And I have had people say that to me in business situations where they're like, you know, as a woman, we just want to make sure that you don't get carried away. Like, I had a boss say this to me, too. Like, I had a board member say this to me, and I was like, whatever, I can keep it short, and I just let it roll. But I think that's a really good point, is like you sometimes are directly told, oh, you're a woman, you have a set of breasts, clearly you talk too much. Like, it's really ridiculous if you think about it. And there was a time when I would purposely make myself talk less so that people wouldn't think that.
I have a dare that I just thought of. In relation to public spaces, panels and whatnot, I have an amazing male boss who refuses to speak on a panel if it's all men. And so this is a dare for everybody. You know, it's not just us and not just about me and my speaking time, although that's a great point. It can be you and your actions and making sure that there's representation.
I love that. Thank you. Yeah. Obstacle number 3. I wonder if you follow just a reminder to reflect on your own stories as well as we go through those obstacles. Those are the main obstacles that have been, raised among women. Women often do not have the courage to ask or demand. I know we touched a little bit about on this already, but anybody wants to, yeah, Megan?
I have one.
Yes.
I guess now almost 11 years ago, I was pregnant with my first child. And the women, I've worked for a small research company. The women before me who had had children chose to use their breast pump in the company bathroom. And I decided that was not good enough for me. And I told my bosses I wanted a space. And I asked the other women who had previously done this, what did they do? And they said, well, it was, it's good enough for me. Why is it not good enough? Why is it not good enough for you? And I just decided that I don't ever want to be that woman to someone else or that woman to anyone where it's, well, if it was good enough for me, it should be good enough for you. Everyone has their own needs. So I demanded that we take a closet full of crap that we didn't need anymore, and we cleared it out, and I put pretty curtains up, and I made myself a space. But this was the thing that I think really helps, because it is hard sometimes to demand something for yourself. And it was silly for me to worry about it because they let me do it. They were happy to let me do it, but I just had to get over that fear to demand, make that demand. I think the switch in my head that flipped was it's not just for me. Any demand that I make for myself is going to be passed down. And guess what? When I was done, there were 3 women in my office after me that got pregnant, and they all were able to use the nursing room. And it just felt so good to see that I made that small change. But that really helped women in the office. And I think if you find yourself having trouble with a demand, flip that switch and think, how is this going to help other people too? It's just like women as caretakers, like we kind of think of other people first. Not necessarily a bad thing, but if that's what you have to switch in your brain in order to think, I'm going to make this demand because this is what I need to do my job better, so I'm going to demand this. That's a way that you can twist it so you can really get that confidence to ask what you need.
For me, it really came into effect heavy when I had a health scare. And so once my health was in jeopardy, that's when I learned to ask and demand and advocate for myself. Because we all know without your health, you don't have anything. And being basically pushed to the side when you feel and you know that something in your body's not right. And so having that experience, that really put me in a position to utilize my voice, to demand to, get answers to my questions, to demand to be treated properly and taken care of the way that I'm supposed to be, and to basically, continue to seek out resources and other opportunities that can help me get what I need. So, don't stop with just one person. If they're not giving you what you need or meeting your concerns or your needs, then don't stop there. Go to the next person. Just because one person doesn't believe that what you're asking for or even demanding in some cases is valuable, that doesn't mean that it isn't. Go somewhere else. So that's a story that I wanted to share about that. And I have another specific dare. And so for me, my dare is to seek out, not demand, but ask for a colleague who is a little bit further along in business and podcasting to be my mentor. So that is a goal that I have for myself for the beginning of Q3, so October.
Nice.
Can I disagree slightly on the question itself, the obstacle itself? So I think for me, I take a little bit of issue with the word courage here, like not having enough courage, because that hasn't been my experience. And I can't say that I know many women that don't have the courage to ask for what they want. Is it true sometimes? Sure. And I think individually we all have moments where we have to pump ourselves up to be a little bit more courageous and get what we need. But speaking from my own experience, I'm a woman of color, I'm biracial, I'm Black and Latina, and I can't think of many situations where I've been afraid to ask for or demand something. I think what I see in my own life and other women I know is just we're freaking tired. of advocating not just for ourselves, because we know that we advocate for ourselves, we're also advocating for our community. There's a lot of tokenization that happens. I can't tell you how many times I've been in a room, been in a board meeting, a business meeting, and someone has looked at me in the face and said, "I'm so glad you're here, you check both boxes for us." At least 10 times, at least, right? And so I'm not there as a representative for myself as a professional. They look at me and they say, "Oh, you're biracial? Great. You're here to represent Black people and brown people. Isn't that wonderful?" And so I know in that role that I don't have the luxury of not being courageous. I have to correct what just happened, and I have to behave in a way that there's this pressure that I'm supposed to behave in this way that is speaking for, representing these communities of color. I don't represent Black people, I don't represent brown people. I know what my community needs, right? I know what the problems are, I know where the gaps are, I know how they've been underrepresented and marginalized, I know all of that, but I don't speak for anybody. I as a person who's co-founded BIPOC Podcast Creators, nobody voted me to speak for them, right? But we check in with our community and say, "Hey, is this good," right? So it's not about courage. It's like at some point you just get exhausted. Yep. And you're like, I have to represent everybody now because you don't know anybody else that looks like me? Like, come on.
That's a very good point. Thank you. Thank you.
I'll try to keep mine short because I know we're running out of time. But so for me, this is definitely an ongoing journey. Every time I feel like I'm like, yes, I'm doing it, I realize that there's another level that I need to be leveling up to, which is also sometimes feels unfortunate, but it is also a reality of life. And so I'm going to be really specific about, like, I email a lot, so anyone who's on the Cap Show list knows this. We're probably good friends because you probably hear from me almost every day. And it took, even to do that was a big step for me, to almost demand attention, even if it's by email. Like, that still was a thing, because I'm like, oh, people don't want to hear from me. They don't, all those things that go through my mind. But so that in itself was a big step. And now for me, my dare to myself is to take it to the next step, which is, because I get a lot of great feedback on my emails, which I'm very thankful for. We do a really good job.
Emails are great.
Oh, thank you. We do a really good job of nurturing the community and making everyone feel included and giving value. But then we stop at the next step of like, hey, we actually have a business. Do you want to buy my thing? So that's going to be my dare, to be a little bit more upfront about that.
Nice. I like that. Cool. Moving on to obstacle number 4. Very curious to hear from you about that. Women often do not support each other.
So I would be happy to hop in here. Have what I think is kind of a funny story. But so we are a team of 4 female podcasters. I'm the founder of the company. We have 3 podcasts. We publish a ton of episodes. Been around for 10 years. And so we're a small team. So I don't see the kind of undercutting that you might see in the corporate world. I've never actually worked a day in the corporate world, which I'm proud of. However, so I don't think we're a team that undercuts each other or does not support each other. But I kind of undercut our team and myself as a leader once. I think this is funny, but it was about 1.5 years ago, and I was starting to reach out to companies for B2B licensing of our podcast, licensing our online courses, and just kind of leveling up beyond just podcasting to individuals, wanting to take my company to the next level. And for a split second, I thought I was about to send a cold reach out email. I thought to myself, would I be more likely to get a response to this email if I took my male dog's name and put it at All Ears English? So Kiefer at allearsenglish.com instead of Lindsay at allearsenglish.com. I didn't do it, but I thought it. And just the fact that I thought that might actually increase my response rate from this email was kind of disturbing to me. And so that's the point, right? I see men patting each other on the back, congratulating each other for promotions, but our strength as a company does in some ways lie in the fact that we're a female team of podcasters, and it turns out we're good at conversation, we're good at listening to each other, And listeners love it. It's why we get 8 million downloads a month on our podcast. Listeners love our show. And part of that, not all of that, is because we're an all-female team. And so in the future, what I want to do is amplify that more and more, right? It's all about what we see our limits as. That's where it comes from, right? So I'm going to make a commitment to myself to not undercut my team and not try to send an email like that in the future. So.
Nice.
I think I'm pretty lucky that I work with a team of women who are amazing, and we do support each other. I almost don't even want to read this aloud because I don't want it to be true, and it has not been true in a lot of my experience. But I have a dare for the women in the audience, the men too, that I learned from personal experience. When I was younger in my career, I did a presentation at a radio convention, and this woman, an amazing woman from the radio industry named Erica Farber came up to me afterwards and said, "You did a great job. I hope your company knows how much you're worth." And to just have this person I looked up to come up to me and say that to me meant so much. Just that little boost of confidence, and I carried that with me for years. And then a couple years later, I was at the same conference, and she was on a mentoring panel. And she told the story how she actually makes a point to do that to every young woman she sees when they do a good job, to seek them out and tell them that she hopes their company knows how much they're worth. And at first I was taken back. I was a little upset. Hey, wait a minute, I'm not special. But then I thought about it more, and I thought, how amazing is this woman that she made a point to just keep passing it out. So my dare to you is all be like Erica Farber and find people and say something to really boost them up, so women can support each other.
I love this. Thank you. We only have a couple of minutes. Talaya, did you want to say something about this topic? And very quick, before.
Okay, so I found this to be true in corporate America, but once I went out on my own and started my own business, started podcasting, it totally changed. And I think that in corporate America, it's kind of the lay of the land. It's kind of how things are done, where you feel like you got to step on someone else's toes or put other people down to get ahead, where in reality that's not true. But I can honestly say that when I ventured out on my own, it's totally different. And I also quickly want to just add that every time I've shown up for a woman and supported her, the universe blessed me and did the same thing for me. So don't be afraid to support other women. It's not going to hurt you. It's going to lift you up as well as them.
The last obstacle we're going to cover today, women can't be successful in podcasting while being mothers. And this, I think Megan.
Am I the mother on the panel?
I think you are.
So I mentioned my daughter earlier. I have two daughters. One's 11, one's 8. So about 12 years ago, about the same time I was making a mother's room in my company, I had my daughter, but I had a very demanding career that I loved. I was traveling, doing presentations, conducting focus groups on podcasts and audio listening, and it became really hard. I realized, this working mother thing is really difficult. To be away from my baby, it's really hard. And I was at a crossroads where I thought, I don't know if I can do this anymore. But I didn't want to quit my job. I really liked my job. So I had to do something else drastic. And this is my crazy truth that I will share with all of you. I've never done this in front of a room of people. I bought a house. My husband and I bought a house with my parents. They were ready to retire and move. We went looking for a house, and around the time that we were starting to look for a house, my grandparents got ill. So then it became my husband and I, my daughter, my parents, my mother's father, and my father's mother all moved together in one crazy house. It was a big house to fit us all. But so I lived in a multi-generational house. It's been 8 years now that I've been living with this, group of people. My grandparents have since passed, but it's just been, it's crazy, it's not easy, but my point is, and I don't, it's extreme, it's a crazy story. I don't expect everyone to move in with their entire family. It's not easy.
Can I show a picture?
Yeah, yes, show the picture. But the point is that find your village. This is my family and our various animals. So this is what worked for me. Every single year we have to check in with each other and say, can we still do this? Are we still okay with this? Because it's not easy. But it allowed me to reach levels of my career I never would have expected. I can just leave at the drop of a hat, and I know that my husband's not alone in caring for my kids. It's just been an amazing experience. My grandparents lived a lot longer than we expected them to because they had little ones to be with. So again, I don't expect this to be the thing for you if you're struggling with the idea of having a baby. It's a village. It takes a village. So find your village. Find your way to make it happen, because it's worth it.
I'm sorry we are at time. As you can imagine, those women have tons more to say. But again, I really encourage you on the panel. Thank you so much for sharing those truth and dare with us. Thank you again. Thank you, everyone. Thank you to all the men who showed up to this session. And please, Women Dare on social, go for it. We will be watching, listening, and supporting each one of you. And hopefully, again, you'll support each other. Thank you very much.